Well, I think the playoff race in the WHL here, especially looking at the Eastern Conference, is going to be very anti-dramatic here, as you will find out here in the next episode of... Hi there, it's Brett Ormby here. Welcome back to another episode of my Calgary Hitmen in 6 here. Here we are in Season 2, episode number 9 here. As in this episode, we'll talk about games 43 to 48 here in the 2019-20 WHL regular season here. And keep in mind, in the Western Hockey League here, there's only 68 games. I mean, you're thinking 82 is the NHL here, but the Western Hockey League and all leagues in the Canadian Hockey League, they only play 68 games here. So essentially, we're getting down into the nitty-gritty stretch drive there. And what I meant in the opening there, that this playoff race in the Eastern Conference is going to be very anticlimactic here, is that Calgary played the Red Deer Rebels a lot in this stretch here, and we definitely separated the Red Deer Rebels here in terms of their hopes of making the playoffs here. It's looking very likely where the Calgary Hitmen will be when it comes to playoff position here, as in after I recap my 6 games as usual, and also the fact that I'm going to go over player stats and the standings here. As you know, we're getting down the stretch drive. Let's lament on some possible playoff opponents here, and I think we might have played a few in this 6-game recap here. Now, before I get to the games here, if you want to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey here, home of the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders here, just make sure you hit like, subscribe, and follow along, and hit that bell icon to be notified as soon as I upload something. I mean, this is the main thing I do, recapping Calgary sports here, with game recaps, stories, and that. As well, I do personal vlogs and attempt to comedy and, share things like on my smartphone when I'm on at a sporting event. For example, I have a couple Calgary Hitmen, moments from that. Or if I'm on holidays, or wherever, I pull up my camera or smartphone. So if that sounds like anything you enjoy watching, just make sure you follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey here. So let's get going with the game recaps here, and also happy Super Bowl Sunday, Groundhog Day, and Palindrome Day. It's 2020-02-02, which is February 2nd. The Super Bowl happens to be today. I don't care who wins. And Groundhog Day. I don't care if Balzac Billy sees a shadow here. We can count on the rodent to decide if winter is over or spring is coming. But that classic movie, Groundhog Day, with Bill Murray, where that saying, it's Groundhog's Day. And maybe this will be, segue to that, because there's going to be a lot of familiarity looking with the Calgary Hitmen here going down the stretch here. So yeah, so game 43. So now we'll actually get to the game, because the longer video is a little longer intro there. So game 43, this happened on Sunday, January the 19th here. The Calgary Hitmen were still on their road trip there, as they were spending some time in Saskatchewan and Manitoba there. So if you recall in the last episode there, Calgary had a back-to-back with Winnipeg there, or first half of the back-to-back. So this is the second half of the back-to-back with the Winnipeg Ice at the Wayne Fleming Arena there. And yes, it's named after the same Wayne Fleming that he spent a couple seasons here with the Calgary Flames as an assistant coach there, and I believe he'd actually passed away of brain cancer there, so it's that same Wayne Fleming it's named after. So I say second back-to-back games with Winnipeg Ice, and Calgary was looking to rebound, because they definitely had a bad first half in the game the night before when they played Winnipeg, if you look in the last episode there. However, the Winnipeg Ice did continue. They started off strong here as they opened up the scoring just past the 8-minute mark by Cole Muir. So Winnipeg actually had a 1-0 lead going into the first period there, or after the first period there. In the final minute of the first period, we'll highlight that Mark Kaslick for the Calgary Hitmen and Jackson Leopard, what a name, but Jackson Leopard there, engaged in the fight there, and actually Mark Kaslick for the Calgary Hitmen took an extra unsportsmanlike penalty there. Mark Kaslick is definitely a great leader, and he can do it all. He can fight and score there. And hopefully there's some hope there for you guys if you're an Ottawa Senators fan, because he is an Ottawa Senators draft pick there. Second period, it was a very defensive period for both sides here. There wasn't too many shots here, But the Calgary Hitmen made their shots count here. As first, when Blake Allen took a penalty here, Calgary was short-handed here early in the second period here. However, it was on that penalty where Blake Allen was serving his 2-minute penalty there. Riley Fitter-Schultz for the Calgary Hitmen actually tied things up at 1-1 at the 4:45-minute mark of the second period there to make it 1-1. Later in the second period, just before the 17-minute mark, later in the second period there, Carson Fook has scored his 22nd goal at the time of the season at the time to make it 2-1 on the power play there. So Calgary led 2-1 at the second period there, and Carson Fook is a Vancouver Canucks prospect as he was drafted by them this past draft here. So Vancouver's definitely looking better in the NHL these days, and it's nice for them to have some prospects they're producing right now. We're enjoying Carson Fook. So that was 2-1 Calgary after the second period here. Third period, it was another tight one here on both sides. Winnipeg did tie things up at 2-2 here when Isaac Johnson for the Winnipeg Ice. Just for the 5-minute mark, so it was 2-2 there, and much of the third period, both sides were looking for the go-ahead goal, obviously, here. It wasn't until just before the 13.5-minute mark of the third period here, Zorka Weisblad for the Calgary Hitmen. That was his 15th goal of the season at the time. Puts Calgary up 3-2, and ultimately the Calgary Hitmen took the second game of the back-to-back weekend series with the Winnipeg Ice with the 3-2 victory here and split things up. And Calgary also had the slight edge in shots. It was 20-19 there. Calgary was led by Carson Fook. He had a goal and assist there. Braden Peters, for Calgary, who suddenly has been taking over the starting position here, he made 17 saves for Calgary, while Jesse Vera made 17 saves for the Winnipeg Ice there. So that was that game. So then game 44, this happened on Saturday, January the 25th here. This is where we get a lot of Red Deer Rebels here. So Calgary was in Red Deer on Saturday, January 25th at the Western Park Centurion. That was a 7 p.m. puck drop here. This actually wrapped up a 5-game road trip for the Calgary Hitmen there, but they had the break between Winnipeg and this game with Red Deer here. So it was definitely a chance for the Calgary Hitmen. It's definitely, when I get to the standings part here, this definitely was a chance to put some more distance between Calgary and Red Deer to solidify themselves at least into a wildcard position here. And Calgary definitely was dominant and showed that for the most part in this game here. Mark Kaslik opens up the scoring just past the 5-minute mark, and Calgary took a 1-0 lead, and it was 1-0 Calgary after the first period there. Second period, Calgary continued their strong play and took advantage of a couple Red Deer penalties here, so Calgary scored a couple power play goals here. First, was Riley Stotts on his 20th goal just before the 8-minute mark. And Mark Kaslik again, that was his 23rd of the season, second of the game, just before the 19-minute mark, so on the final minute there. So Calgary had a 3-0 lead going into the third period here. So in the third period, the Red Deer Rebels did push back a little here. But first, it was Josh Prokop who gave Calgary a 4-0 lead just before the 6-minute mark. But then Red Deer got a couple goals themselves here to get a little closer here. Ben King for the Red Deer Rebels gives Rebels their first goal of the game here, just before the 7-minute mark to make it a 4-1 game. Then Jace Isley past the 16-minute mark, so it was later in the third period here. Red Deer made it just a little interesting to make it a 4-2 game here. However, the goalie pulled in the extra attacker here. It was eventually Riley Stotts that put it in the empty net at the 18-minute mark to put it away. So Calgary took this game 5-2 in Red Deer, and Calgary also outshot the Red Deer Rebels 30-23 overall here. Calgary was led the way by both Riley Stotts and Mark Kaslik. Riley Stotts had 2 goals and 2 assists here, and Mark Kaslik had 2 goals and assists there, so our leading scorers. Josh Prokop also chipped in with a goal and assist, and Jet Wu, who was also another Vancouver Canucks prospect here, he chipped in with 2 assists himself there. Braden Peters for Calgary, he made 21 saves, while Ethan Anders made 25 saves for the Red Deer Rebels here. So that was game 44. Game 45, this happened on the next day, on Sunday, January the 26th here. The Calgary Hitmen were taking on the Red Deer Rebels again with a back-to-back weekend series. But this time, the Calgary Hitmen were back home at the Scotiabank Stadium. That's a 2 p.m. puck drop here. And once again, first period, both teams looked a little flat here. Maybe the fact that they played the night before on the road here. So there was no scoring to report after the first period there. And nothing else so interesting happened here. Second period, the Calgary definitely picked up their goal game with 2 goals early here. First is Dakota Krebs. Actually, it was his first goal of the season here in the opening minute. And then Riley Stotts, he got his 22nd goal of the season past the 4.5 minute mark. So Calgary had a 2-0 lead early in the second period there. Red Deer, though, a minute and a half later, got their first of the game by Zach Smith. So it was 2-1 at this point here. And 38 seconds later, Calgary regained their 2-goal lead by the other Riley Fither-Schultz. And Calgary led 3-1, and it was 3-1 Calgary after the second period there. Third period, Calgary scored 2 more goals early in the third period. In fact, I'll say very early. First, Arco Weisblad, he picked up his 16th goal of the season at the 35-second mark. So just after puck drop here, Calgary scored a goal. And then Josh Prokop, who got his 12th goal of the season 34 seconds later. So in the first, just past the opening minute of the third period here, Calgary scored 2 more goals here to make this a 5-1 game here at this point. Red Deer got 1 more goal by Jaden Gruby just past the 15.5 minute mark. So Calgary, once again, for the second straight game, beat the Red Deer Rebels with a similar 5-2 score here. In the final 10 minutes, in the final 10 seconds, I should say, Ethan Rowland for Red Deer and Riley Fither-Schultz for Calgary took late misconduct penalties there, but, it was garbage time there. Calgary was led the way by Riley Stotts. He had a goal and assist there. Both Mark Kaslik and Jack Wu each chipped in with 2 assists here. Braden Peters, once again, was in net for Calgary. He made 23 saves. And it was Byron Fancy for Red Deer. He made 24 saves. There was also a couple of minutes in the third period there. Ethan Anders played a couple of minutes in the third period there. So mostly it was Brownie and Fancy that played in net for the Red Deer Rebels there. So that was game 45. Game 46 here, this was an unusual Wednesday night game. This happened on Wednesday, January 29th. The Calgary Hitmen were taking on the Winnipeg Ice again. This time at Scotiabank Saddledome at the 7 p.m. puck drop here. So lots of Rebels and lots of ice here. Rebel Ice sound like an extreme drink there. But so Wednesday night hockey and get to see the Winnipeg Ice again. I think this is the first time the Winnipeg Ice are in Calgary. And keep in mind, this was the same franchise that was in Kootenay recently when he represented Cranbrook there. So Winnipeg actually did open up very strong, and they were very dominant in their play in the first period here. However, actually Calgary was able to open up the scoring as Dakota Krebs scored just in the final minute of the first period here. So Calgary, I'm going to say fortunate, they were up 1-0 there after the first period there. Calgary then got their second goal just past the 3-minute mark by one of the recently acquired Calgary Hitmen at the trade deadline, Conrad Mitchell, to make it 2-0 at this point here. However, Winnipeg definitely did fight back here as they're one of the top teams in the Eastern Division here, in the Eastern Conference here. Winnipeg fought back with Benjamin Zulte, who gives them their first goal of the game past the 7-minute mark, and then Michelle Tepley ties it up past the 17-minute and a half minute mark, so it was a 2-2 game. So Calgary and Winnipeg were now deadlocked at 2-2 going into the third period here. The third period here, obviously both sides were looking for the goal here. It actually remained 2-2 going into the final minute of the third period here. And it was Mark Kaslik, the captain, who actually scored the go-ahead goal with literally 44 seconds left to go in the third period here to make it 3-2. And Calgary ultimately won this one in dramatic fashion with a 3-2 victory there. After terribly being outplayed in the first period there, Calgary was led by Mark Kaslik with a goal and assist there. Winnipeg, they had good efforts by Michelle Tepley with a goal and assist there. And Peyton Krebs with 2 assists there. Braden Peters definitely was a big reason why the Calgary Hitmen were able to win this one, as he made 24 saves for Calgary, while Liam Hughes for Winnipeg made 16 saves there. So that was that. So game 47, this happened on Friday, January the 31st here. The Calgary Hitmen were taking on the Brandon Wheat Kings at home at the Scotiabank Saddledome. 7 p.m. puck drop here, and if you're keeping track here, Calgary was on a 4-game winning streak here, and they were looking to extend that point. However, for the second straight game, Calgary definitely looked sluggish to start in the first period here, and unlike the Winnipeg game, they definitely paid the price here. First, Brandon opens up the scoring just before the 10-minute mark by Luka Barzin, and then Marcus Gandarek makes it 2-0 for Brandon just past the 60-minute mark, and Brandon was up 2-0 at this point here. I also want to note here is that the Brandon Wheat Kings also outshot the Calgary Hitmen 19-9 in the first period there, so definitely Calgary was flat and Brandon took advantage there. Actually, it was a bigger shot differential in this game in the first period compared to the Winnipeg game there. And then in the second period here, Calgary did show a little better effort, but Brandon actually was able to add to their lead there, as Lyndon McCallum makes it 3-0 there, past the 7.5 minute mark there. So Brandon took a 3-0 lead going into the third period. Third period, Calgary was still looking for their first goal of the game, but it was Luka Burzan. Actually, it was his 29th goal of the season at that point, second of the game here, to make it 4-0 for Brandon just past the 10-minute mark, and ultimately that was the final score as the Brandon Wheat Kings shut out the Calgary Hitmen 4-0 here to end their winning streak at 4 games here. Brandon outshot Calgary overall 42-37 there. That included the 19-9 first period there, but Calgary and Brandon looked a little, more even in the second and third period here. Brandon, well, obviously they were led by Luka Burzan. He had 2 goals and an assist in this game. Chad Nychuk also chipped in with 2 assists for Brandon here. Braden Peters, he made 38 saves for Calgary, while as Yuri Patera, he had a strong game. He made 37 saves in the shutout there for Brandon here. So that was game 47. So the last game in this 6-game recap here. This happened on Saturday, February 1st. The Calgary Hitmen were taking on the Red Deer Rebels the next afternoon at the Scotiabank Saddle, 1:30 p.m. puck drop there. Yes, there was a game before that other game, and there's definitely going to be a lot to talk about when you see the next episode of my Calgary Flames in 6 here, because this game was definitely a warm-up to, it wasn't really much of a warm-up here, but yes, that game followed before, that a very interesting game that the other Calgary hockey team played with another Alberta rival there. So this was some Saturday afternoon delight and more Red Deer Rebels sticks. Yeah, this is the third game in this 6-game segment here. We played the Red Deer Rebels and 2 games against the Winnipeg Ice here. And Calgary was looking to rebound from that sluggish effort the night before against the Brandon Wheat Kings there. And Calgary actually got off to a quick start here as the other recently acquired Calgary Hitman, Connor Gabbridge, opens up at the scoring just past the minute and a half mark very early here. So Calgary took an early 1-0 lead here. The rest of the first period was a defensive period, so nothing else to show. So Calgary had that 1-0 lead going into the second period. Second period, Calgary showed their dominance once again on the Red Deer Rebels as Carson Fook scored his 23rd of the season past the 14-minute mark. So Calgary had a 2-0 lead going into the third period. It's also noticed that the Calgary Hitmen also outshot the Red Deer Rebels 11-4 in the second period alone here. Calgary in the third period, well, they were able to put Red Deer away in this one as Carson Fook scored his 24th of the season and second of the game here to make it 3-0 past the 6.5 minute mark. And then Jackson Vanderleest on the blue line there. He always has his Vandy report there. He actually scored 2 goals in less than a minute and a half apart here. First one past the 13-minute mark, and then the next one at the 14.5-minute mark. So just like that, Calgary took a 5-0 lead here. And ultimately, Calgary won this game 5-0. So we definitely rebounded from being shut out the night before against the Brandon Wheat Kings here. But the Red Deer Rebels are definitely a team that's definitely struggling this season and won't make the playoffs, especially when we get to the standing story here. And Calgary outshot Red Deer 12-4 in the third period alone here. So, and overall, actually the Calgary Hitmen outshot the Red Deer Rebels 28-14. So a 2-1 ratio there. Calgary was led the way by Carson Fook and Jackson Vanderleest, who each had 2-goal games. Jet Wu and Orca Weisblad also chipped in with 2 assists each there. Jack Benon actually was in net here, so it was his first start here in this 6-game segment here. He only needed to make 14 saves in the shutout for the Calgary Hitmen. Well, it was Ethan Anders who made 23 saves for the Red Deer Rebels there. So where the Calgary Hitmen stand after 48 games here? Well, the Calgary Hitmen have 27 wins, 16 losses, 4 overtime losses, and a shootout loss there. So that gives them 59 points on the season there. They're likely going to be stuck 4th in the Central Division there, and in the first wild card of the Eastern Conference here. So let's go do some player stats first, and then I'll look at the standings here. So the leading scorer right now for the Calgary Hitmen, I'll just go bang off the top 5 here. So Riley Stotts, after 48 games, he has 22 goals, 30 assists for 52 points here. Second leading scorer is Mark Hasklick. He's played 42 games and he has 24 goals, 23 assists for 47 points here. And then Orca Weisblatt, who's third, and after 48 games, he has 16 goals, 27 assists for 43 points there. Carson Fluke is fourth in scoring in 45 games. He has 24 goals, 16 assists or 40 assists there. And then around the top five, Jet Wu, definitely we acquired him from the Moose Jaw there to get some offense on the blue line there. After 48 games, he has 6 goals, 27 assists for 33 points there. So that's just the top five for the Calgary Hitmen here. So when it comes to the goaltending here, well, Braden Peters and Jack McNaughton, well, almost have even in terms of games played, because Braden Peters has played 23 games and Jack McNaughton has played 25 games, but I'd say Braden Peters has been the starting goalie here. When it comes to the records here, though, Braden Peters, he's 11, 10, and 2, and he has a goals against average of .244 and a .910 save percentage here. While Jack McNaughton, he's actually 15, 5, and 1 there, and his goals against average is .313 and .884 save percentage there. So, I mean, he's definitely, I think Braden Peters has definitely faced some tougher opponents than Jack McNaughton up to this point here when you look at the standings. So that's why sometimes, you know, the backup goalie or goalie who's been playing backup games seems to have a little better numbers because they don't play against, you know, tougher opponents there. So, let's take a look at the standings here. I'm going to start from west to east here. As first in the Western Conference here, we got the U.S. Division here. I'm just going to say games played in points here just to keep it simpler here. So in the U.S. Division, you got the Portland Winterhawks after 48 games. They're in first place with 76 points here. The Everett Silvertips are in second place. After 47 games, they have 68 points here. Then in third place is the Spokane Chiefs after 49 games. They have 59 points there. Then in the BC Division here, first place after 49 games is the Kamloops Blazers. They have 68 points here. And then the second place is the Victoria Royals. After 49 games, they have 57 points. And then in third place, the Vancouver Giants after 47 games. They have 49 points here. So when it comes to the wild cards for the Western Conference here, the Kelowna Rockets are in first place. And after 49 games, they have 49 points here. And in the Seattle Thunderbirds, this is the Western Hockey League team, they have 47 games. They have 45 points there. And then the next team outside looking in is the Tri-City Americans. After 47 games, they have 35 points here. So Seattle has a 10-point lead on the Tri-City Americans. And what's different with the Western Hockey League that you see these bigger gaps than, let's say, the NHL with their playoff races is, you know, they don't have as much money for travel there. And, you know, you gotta remember a lot of these guys are still teenagers and they still got school there. And so a lot of time they play games regionally there. They go on those road trips because, for example, Calgary, usually if we're going out to Saskatchewan and Manitoba there, it's all on the road trip here. And eventually Calgary always has like a Pacific Northwest road trip there and then a BC road trip there. So you get a lot of more divisional rival games. So when it comes to teeing up the bracket here, right now, you would see the Portland Winterhawks. Since they're first in the U.S. Division and in the Western Conference here, they would take on the second wild card. So Portland will be playing Seattle here. So that'd be a nice regional rivalry here. And then the Everett Silvertips are in second. They will take on the Spokane Chiefs. That's another, you know, state rivalry there. 2 and 3 there. So that would be the U.S. Division, the bracket here. Then the BC Division here, the Kamloops Blazers. Well, you have an Okanagan battle here, as the Kamloops Blazers will host the Kelowna Rockets. And then you got a Vancouver Victoria, as Victoria would host Vancouver here. So that would be the Western Conference side of the story here. And I'm going to say those are likely the top 8 is likely going to make the playoffs here. So now looking to the Eastern Conference here. So the Central Division here, the Edmonton Oil Kings after 51 games have 77 points here. The Lethbridge Hurricanes, and for 49 games, has 67 points here. And then the Medicine Hat Tigers, after 49 games, they have 66 points here. That's the top 3 in the Central Division there. In the Eastern Division here, you have the Prince Albert Raiders. After 50 games, they have 63 points. And then the Winnipeg Ice, after 49 games, have 59 points. And then the Brandon Wheat Kings round up the top 3 in the Eastern Division with 58 points there. And then when it comes to the wild card of the Eastern Conference here, well, the Calgary Hitmen, after 48 games, have 59 points. And then after the Saskatoon Blades are second in the final playoff position here. After 49 games, they have, say, 54 points here. Now, this is where I mentioned that we really widened the gap with the Red Deer Rebels here, because the Red Deer Rebels are the next team outside looking in. After 48 games, they have 39 points. The Saskatoon Blades have a 15-point lead. So I think the top 8 in the Eastern Conference is going to be the 8 teams that's going to be playing in the playoffs here. And this is almost like the old school NHL. There only had 21, 22 teams here, because there's 22 teams in the Western Hockey League here. So to tee up the playoff bracket here, the Edmonton Oil Kings have the best record in the Eastern Conference here. So actually the Edmonton Oil Kings would be taking on the Calgary Hitmen in the first round here, if this were the standings right now here. And we're definitely in tough here, because I think the top 3 in the Central Division, the Calgary Hitmen definitely has struggled with so far here. So it'll definitely be a tough series here. And then the Lethbridge Hurricanes would host the Medicine Hat Tigers here, a Crow's Nest Highway battle there. And then the East Division here, actually no, being back here, the Edmonton Oil Kings actually would host the Saskatoon Blades here. So I'm mistaken there. Then Lethbridge would play Medicine Hat, so Edmonton will take on Saskatoon. Calgary would actually take on the Prince Albert Raiders, which still would be a tough matchup there with lots of travel in between there. And then the Winnipeg Ice would take on the Brandon Wheat Kings in the Manitoba battle there. So, yeah, it's definitely, you got to wonder. I mean, you know, it's always foresight. You always want the best position possible here. But given that the Calgary Hitmen are 7 points out from being in the top 3 in the Central Division here, and they have struggled with the top 3 teams in the division here, I think we're destined to be a wildcard team here. So you can make your plans to at least book your tickets on the Hitmen Playoff Train. I know they don't use that marketing anymore, but for the purposes of my videos here, I will be saying the Calgary Hitmen Playoff Train. We haven't officially clinched yet, so you can't watch for the train yet here. But with 20 games left here and 20 points ahead of Red Deer, I think I like our chances of the Hitmen Playoff Train getting going again. So yeah, that's the standing story there. So now the last part here, we'll look ahead to the next 6 games that the Calgary Hitmen will be playing, and maybe some potential first round playoff previews here. Well, speaking of the Prince Albert Raiders, Game 49, this will be on Friday, February the 7th here. The Calgary Hitmen will be taking on the Prince Albert Raiders. That will be at home at the Scotiabank Stadium. 7 p.m. puck drop here, and then on Game 50, this will be happening on Saturday, February 8th here, as the Calgary Hitmen will be taking on the Red Deer Rebels up in Red Deer at the Western Park Centrium. 7 p.m. puck drop here, and then Game 51 on Saturday, February 9th here. The Calgary Hitmen will be taking on the Lethbridge Hurricanes back at home at the Scotiabank Stadium. That will be at 4 p.m. puck drop there. And then Calgary has another Wednesday night game on Wednesday, February the 12th here. The Calgary Hitmen will be taking on the Regina Pats here. This will be a 7 p.m. puck drop here. And then Calgary will start their BC road trip here. So Game 53, this will be on Saturday, February the 15th here. The Calgary Hitmen will be going all the way to Prince George to take on the Prince George Cougars here at the CN Centre. That'll be an 8 p.m. puck drop here. Keep in mind all the times I throw out here are Mountain Time. And then the last game, which will be in the next episode, will be on Monday, February the 17th here. The Calgary Hitmen will be taking on the Kelowna Rockets in Kelowna. That'll be at the Prospero Place at 3:05 puck drop here. So looking at the schedule ahead here, I mean, there's going to be a mix of tough opponents and opponents that we should be able to beat here. So yeah, that's definitely the latest episode of my Calgary Hitmen in 6 here. So as I say, if you wanted to follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey here, home of the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders here, just make sure you hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to be notified as soon as, I said, this Calgary sports fan uploads something. And I definitely try to, I do most of my videos on the weekend and batch them, but I'm trying to spread out my content more. I mean, other time-sensitive stuff like this, or any, if I talk about a trade or anything major, I'll do that as soon as possible and upload it whenever. But I'm going to try to spread out my content a little more here so that you're not just all concentrated on the weekend, which I've done in the past. But, I also do personal vlogs, attempt at comedy, and share my experiences. Let's say at a sporting event, we're on vacation. If I pull out my smartphone or camera there, so if that sounds like anything you would like to watch to follow on with this Calgary sports fans journey, that's what this channel is all about here. So as I say, let's go Hitmen here, and let's keep trucking along here, and let's start making plans to look at potentially taking the, not sure what the trip is going to be yet with the Calgary Hitmen Playoff Train, but I'm thinking, looking at the standings here, very confident that we will be riding the Calgary Playoff Hitmen Train. So at least I'll have 15 episodes, because there'll be a couple more 6 games, and then there'll be 4 games when we get to 61 to 65, and then the 4 games, the last 2 regular season games, and then whoever we draw, there'll be a series preview and then a series recap here. So I'm gonna have to come up with a new intro for my Calgary Hitmen in the WHL playoffs here, but I still got 6 weeks to do that. So as I say, I'll see you in the next video.